guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is an entitled People Story. Hello, my name is Emily and I have a story to share with you all today. It's about my neighbor, Sarah, and how she ruined my backyard with her stubbornness and vindictiveness. I've been living in my suburban neighborhood for about 5 years now, and everything was going smoothly until last summer when my husband and I decided to invest in a pool for our backyard. We wanted to create a fun and safe space for our children to play, and we had saved up for years to make it happen. We had never had any issues with Sarah, but that all changed when she found out about our plans. Sarah was always a bit of a stickler for rules and regulations in the neighborhood, but we never thought that would affect us. When we started the process of getting the permits for the pool, she immediately started voicing her concerns about the location of the pool. She claimed that our pool was on her property, even though we had the property surveyed and had the blueprints to prove it was not. Despite our efforts to reason with her, Sarah became more and more hostile towards us as the construction began. She started making passive-aggressive comments whenever we were outside, and we could hear her complaining to other neighbors about us. It was becoming unbearable. Finally, the pool was finished, and we were excited to start enjoying it with our family and friends. However, as soon as we filled it with water, we noticed that something was wrong. The water was murky and had a foul odor. We called the pool company to come and take a look, and they found that the water had been contaminated with toxic chemicals. We were shocked and devastated. We couldn't understand why someone would do this to us. The pool company had to drain the water, and we had to pay for the costly cleaning and refilling of the pool. We suspected that Sarah was the one responsible, but we couldn't prove it. Feeling defeated, my husband and I decided to take a break from the situation and focus on enjoying our pool. We put up a fence to block out Sarah's view of our backyard, hoping that would help alleviate the tension. But Sarah wasn't done yet. One day, we came home to find that our brand new grill, which we had just purchased a week prior, had been completely destroyed. It was smashed beyond repair, and it was obvious that someone had taken a hammer to it. We knew right away who was responsible. At this point, we were fed up with Sarah's behavior and decided to take legal action. We gathered all of the evidence we could find, including witness statements and surveillance footage from our security cameras, and took her to court. In the end, we were awarded a settlement that covered the cost of the damages to our pool and grill, as well as legal fees. The story has a happy ending, though. Sarah eventually moved out of the neighborhood, and we were finally able to enjoy our backyard without any more drama. We even put up a new grill and continued to have friends and family over for barbecues and pool parties. It was a hard lesson to learn, but we realized that sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself and take action to protect what's important to you. The next story is titled They Were Going to Charge £400? I work in retail at a UK electronics retailer, and this story takes place yesterday and today. A customer approached me looking for a new laptop. I showed him a few options, and he mentioned needing something portable but powerful. Typically, this meant a 13-inch laptop with an i5 or i7 processor. Me. What do you need it for? Cust. Well, the laptop has to be powerful, but I need it to be lightweight because I'm an international student. Me. Alright, I have a few laptops that fit this description. Note. These laptops typically cost £600 to £1,000, depending on brand and specifications. I noticed the customer was carrying a laptop in a carrier bag and asked him about it, just being a bit nosy while also making conversation as I showed him around the laptops. Me. So, what's wrong with that laptop? Cust. Oh, the battery has blown up, and it doesn't power on anymore. Me. I see. Can I have a look? So he took it out of the bag, and I noticed it was a MacBook Air. As the store's Apple expert, I asked if I could take a closer look. I noticed that another computer shop sticker was on the top of the MacBook, so I asked the customer about it. Me. I see you've taken it to the other computer store down the road, part of an Apple-style chain that people mistake for an actual Apple store. What did they say was wrong with it? Cust. They didn't open it up, but they said it would cost £400 to fix the problem I described to them. Me. Internally, they quoted him without even looking at it. No surprises there. So I took the MacBook from the customer and walked him down to our store's Apple counter. I plugged it into our MacBook charger and noticed that it lit up green but didn't switch to amber, as it should have. Out of habit, I performed an SMC reset, a hard reset to tell the MacBook to get it together, and it turned on. Cussed. Oh my gosh, you got it working. Me. Yeah, I just want to run some diagnostics to make sure this isn't a fluke. I had the customer change the language from his native language to English and ran diagnostics. The tests came back fine, and the battery reported as being in good condition. Me. It's in good working order with no problems. It just needed this reset, and now it's fine. However, your charger is toast, so you'll need a new one of those. Cussed. That's amazing. Thank you so much. My dissertation was on there, and I would have had to start it again. As someone who had just completed my own dissertation, I completely understood the situation and the stresses of university life. Cussed. How much will it be for the fix? Me. Nothing. It was a fast 2-minute fix. No need to worry. The customer became grateful and happy, and he offered to buy me dinner. I insisted that it was okay and just part of my job. He left with his MacBook in working order and a warning not to use the charger and to use an extra form of storage to back up his work. Today, he came back to purchase the new charger and was specifically looking for me in the store. He had gone out and bought me a cake and macarons from a high-end cake shop. At first, I said I couldn't accept, thinking of work and the cost of the cake, but after much insistence, I did accept. The customer left happy, and I left work later in the evening with a cake in hand and a smile on my face. It's not often that customers show their appreciation like this, and it was such a pleasant surprise. The next story is titled I Tried to Warn Someone Not to Dispute His No-Show Charge, but They Never Listen. I work at a big brand-name hotel in a beach town. In the summer, our rates skyrocket to almost $300 a night, and we are usually sold out. Someone booked 2 rooms for a long weekend and decided not to show or bother calling to cancel. Our no-show policy is pretty standard, one night's cost for each room you booked. This gentleman was charged over $500 in total for his 2 no-show rooms. It sucks, and it's a lot of money, but it's 100% his fault. The gentleman called me a couple of weeks later when he got his credit card bill. I explained to him our policy, and that he wouldn't be getting a refund. He went off, "You don't know who you're messing with. I'm not paying you, idiot, yada yada." Eventually, he told me he was just going to dispute it with his credit card company. This is basically what I said to him. Sir, if you want to dispute the charge with your bank, you have every right to do that. I would not personally recommend it, though. If this was a case of a stolen credit card, I would agree with you, but we have documentation showing you were informed of the no-show policy. However, if you wish to pass this issue along to the bank, I will gladly deal with them. When you dispute a charge, the bank will front you the money while they investigate. When he got money from the bank right after he filed a dispute, he called me to gloat. He told me how stupid I was, yada yada. What I don't think he understood is that the money is pretty much a loan, under the assumption that his charges really were fraudulent. Which they weren't. I easily won the dispute, proving that he willfully did purchase these rooms and was informed of the no-show policy. Then the bank billed him back for the money they fronted him. He called me again. Lucky me. He told me that the bank was billing him and that I had to pay it. He said that because it all started with my hotel, it was our responsibility to pay his bank bill. At this point, I didn't even know what more to say. I just said, "No, have a good day," and hung up. Down the road, he called again, saying that his credit card company was threatening to turn over the bill to collections if he didn't pay. Now he wanted us to pay $800 because of the interest. I told him that his personal finances are his own business and to stop calling. I tried to warn him in the beginning. The next story is titled An Entitled Mother Rips Open the Doors on My Ambulance, and it does not end well for her. So, this just happened last night, and I still can't believe someone would do this. I'm a 30-year-old male paramedic. I've been in EMS for the past 8 years, and I absolutely love my job. Last night, we were dispatched to a 75-year-old female who fell at home. The patient stated that she tripped over her carpet and hit her head when she fell. We arrived on the scene and noticed that the home was a duplex with our patient's door on the right and her neighbor's door on the left. We made our way into the home and found her lying on the floor. The woman was awake and breathing. We started asking her the standard questions: "Are you okay? Does anything hurt? Do you remember the fall?" etc. She stated that she had a pounding headache and that she remembers walking to bed and then waking up on the floor. In my field, that's a pretty big red flag. We noticed that she's got a pretty good lump on the side of her head and a big bruise starting to form already. Noticing the bruise, I asked her if she was on any blood thinners. She said that she was on blood thinners for a previous stroke she had a few years ago. We urged her to let us take her to the hospital because there was a possibility that the fall could have caused a bleed in her brain, and she should go to the hospital to get some scans done. She agrees, and we begin to package her up. We applied a C-collar around her neck in case of any C-spine, neck, injuries. She denied any neck or back pain, so we lifted her up and placed her on our stair chair. A stair chair is exactly what it sounds like. It's a chair with tracks that we use to carry patients up and down stairs. As we were getting her out of the house, her neighbor whipped the door open and started yelling about how she couldn't sleep with all the lights and noises outside. The sound of the stair chair apparently woke her up, and she was not happy about that. My lieutenant walked over to her and apologized and said that we were dealing with a medical emergency and that we would be leaving soon enough. The neighbor then noticed that our patient was her neighbor, and that's when she started yelling about something totally different. The entitled neighbor started yelling, "You can't take her to the hospital. I have errands to run tomorrow, and she needs to watch my kids." My lieutenant again reiterated that we were here for a medical emergency and that her health is more important than her errands. The entitled neighbor let out a loud huff and then slammed the door in his face. We thought that was the end of it. We were wrong. After a few minutes in the back of the ambulance, we told our lieutenant that he could take the engine crew back to the station and that we would be heading out in a few minutes. After we checked her vitals, got an IV going, and started giving her IV fluids, my partner got out of the back and went up to the driver's seat. About 5 seconds later, the back doors of my ambulance flew open, and who do I see? The entitled neighbor, of course. Apparently, she needed a few minutes to get dressed before coming outside. I yelled at her, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She yelled back, "I told you that she can't go to the hospital because she has to watch my kids tomorrow." She then started trying to pull the cot out of the ambulance with our patient on it. Luckily, she didn't know how to unlatch the cot and couldn't get her out. Our patient said, "I can't watch your kids tomorrow because I fell, and I might be having a stroke." The entitled neighbor yelled back at her and said, "You're fine. You don't need to go to the hospital because you're not having a stroke." My partner then heard the commotion and went to the back of the ambulance. He pulled her off the cot, and I slammed and locked the doors. You could tell that the entitled neighbor was about to become combative. It's important to know that either the police department or the sheriff's department responds to our calls, too, when it's at night. Because of where we were, it took a few minutes for the sheriff's department to show up on the scene, but he got there just in time. I couldn't hear much through the door, but I saw the officer get out of his cruiser with his taser drawn. My partner ran back up to the driver's seat and started heading to the hospital. The last thing I saw through the back windows was the entitled neighbor stomping towards the officer and then her hitting the ground after being tased, super satisfying to watch. I was talking with my patient and asked what that was all about, and she said that the entitled neighbor will just drop her 3 young kids off at her house and leave for several hours at a time with no notice. My patient had no idea that she was supposed to watch the kids at all because, again, the entitled neighbor never even gives her a heads up about these things. Like I said in the beginning, this happened last night, so I don't have any updates, but I'll post an update when I learn more. Small update. My contact at the hospital said that the patient does not have a bleed. She does, however, have a really nasty looking bruise on her face from the blood thinners. It's incredibly common. She will most likely be going home soon. There is no update on the neighbor. I probably will not hear anything back until my next shift day. Update. Hey everyone, sorry for the late update. Unfortunately, it's not as exciting as some of you would hope for. So, I got in touch with the officer on that call, and he said that the woman was not formally charged with anything. The patient is back home now and resting comfortably. Like I said before, the hospital found no signs of a bleed, and she was discharged the next day. She was advised to file for an order of protection from the neighbor, but I don't believe I will ever be privy to that information unless something happens again. I read a majority of the comments, and most people are saying to contact Elder Abuse and DCFS. The only problem with filing those reports is having concrete proof. We never actually saw any children, so we can't really say that they are abused or neglected at all. We can say that we have a suspicion, but for all we know, they could be living their best lives at home with the entitled parent. If the entitled parent had left and abandoned her kids, then that's another story. Calling DCFS without any signs of child abuse and just working off hearsay can just cause more problems if the accusations are unfounded. The same can pretty much be applied to elder abuse. We have no actual proof of elder abuse occurring. The entitled neighbor was not involved in the actual fall, and there was no suspicion for any kind of financial, physical, emotional, or social abuse. The way our patient talked about the kids getting dumped on her was in more of an inconsiderate way and not in an abusive way. The next story is titled Hospital Lab Wants the Blood Sample Overfilled. I am a medical student working in a surgical department at a large hospital. My job is to support the doctors by performing examinations and drawing blood samples. We had a patient scheduled for surgery the next day, so I drew our standard pre-op blood samples, including a test tube for checking blood clotting. These test tubes had to be filled to the correct line, otherwise, the included chemical could not stabilize the blood. I normally checked if the tubes were filled correctly, but sometimes I forget about it. I drew the sample and sent it to the lab. An hour later, I got a call from the doctor on duty, saying that the clotting tube wasn't filled enough and if I could draw another sample. I said sure, drew the sample, double-checked if it was filled to the line, and sent it to the lab. Another hour later, I got another call from the doctor, asking me if I filled the clotting tube correctly because the lab said again that it wasn't filled enough. I assured that I double-checked. She decided to draw the third sample herself. We went together to the patient, and we both checked several times that the tube was filled correctly to the line. We sent it to the lab and were sure that we got it right this time. Another hour later, the lab called again stating that the tube wasn't filled enough. The doctor was so pissed off because the tube was definitely filled correctly. She asked the lab tech what she had to do. He replied, "Fill it to the top." "To the top?" "Yes, to the top. The tube has to be completely full." So she maliciously complied, knowing that you only had to fill the tube to the line and not to the top. We drew the fourth blood sample on the same day and filled it to the top. The patient was not amused. An hour later, the lab called and said that the test tube was too full, rendering the results invalid. The doctor was so pissed and demanded to speak to the lab director. She demanded that the lab send someone over to draw the sample since we seemed to be incompetent. So someone came over, drew the fifth sample, exactly to the line, and sent it to the lab. It was also underfilled. Turns out the calibration of the analyzing machine was off. The lab director was quite embarrassed and apologized several times. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.